This podcast is part of the Zeo to Hero podcast network. Hello, all my beautiful people. It's time for another fun episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. And I just want to say thank you to everyone listening right now. Whether this is your first time or if you're one of my loyal listeners, I really appreciate you all being here today to listen to this episode. So I have a really cool guest with me today, and that is Steve Orlando. All my comic book people probably know who that is. He is a writer for Marvel and DC and Image and all kinds of other people. And we got to have a really cool conversation today. Now, I will tell you, it is a little shorter because I had some technical difficulties on my side. Zoom didn't want to work right, so I showed up a little later than what I wanted to, and he had to leave at a certain time. So we didn't get as much time as what I wanted, but it was still an amazing episode. I really enjoyed talking to him. We went over all kinds of really cool stuff, and I look forward to having him again on the show in the future. And for those of you who are here just to listen to the Steve Orlando episode, welcome. I hope you enjoy what you hear, and I hope that you stick around and listen to some of my other episodes as well. So, if you guys are as excited as I am, then let's get this show on the road.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast.
You're bloody welcome!
Hey, Dad.
If I get my hand stuck in a pickle jar, I'm straight up bull in a china shop, just swinging around.
Started writing songs when I was about 12 or so.
Seriously?
They're retrofitting me now, and
I'm like, yes, finally.
I've also had the opportunity to go train with Hoist Gracie and Dan Severn.
Wow.
I like that. That's different. Stands out.
That day I took my very first bump and it was fun.
There's only one section to go through first.
Yeah.
Toys.
Bro.
I was like, no, man, surely this guy's not worked out that long.
I haven't laughed that hard since I was a little girl.
What?
Man, this guy won't shut up.
And just a reminder before we get started here, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to iGadap wherever it is you're listening to. Hit that notification bell so you are notified when a new episode drops. Also, make sure that you go out there and rate and review this episode. Tell me what you think of it. And the more people that do that, the more likely I am to be recommended to somebody else. Now, on to the show. All right, everybody. So this one is one that I've been really excited about doing. And I told you guys about it last week a little bit that didn't tell you who it was, but now I have them on here and I'm excited to talk to my guest today. He is an American comic book writer. He works with Marvel, DC, Image, IDW, Boom, TKO, and many other ones. He's also been nominated for a GLAAD, an Eisner, and a Ringo. And I'm talking about Steve Orlando. Man, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. That's a hell of an opening. You should just prep me for every single convention and panel I do. That would be amazing.
Well, I mean, I try to make people feel as good as possible when I get them on here, kind of butter them up a little bit, that way they'll be more ready to talk, I guess you could say.
Well, I'm always ready, my friend. I'm happy to be on. And as folks have seen, I'm often nominated, still have yet to win, but someday I will finally reach the path to victory and I'll be there.
It is going to happen. I know it is. I've actually kind of been going back through and reading some of your stuff. Right now, I'm actually reading some of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comics that you've written. And man, I love that stuff. It is wonderful.
Well, thank you. That came together, honestly, extremely easily. Sometimes it can be a real path, and a real hustle to try to get a book across the plate in this business. But with specifically doing the Bulk and Skull things, honestly, it was the easiest pitch I ever had. I was at San Diego Comic-Con. They had just announced Power Rangers, and I guess I was feeling myself. I had just done like an original at Boom. So I was like, what you need to do is do Bulk and Skull, but it's like Archie comics.
Yeah.
And they were like, sold, no pitch needed. And I said, okay, I like that. I like when it works that way. So those came together extremely easily, and I still really love those things. I'll say this: that's when I learned that comedy across any type of language barrier is much more challenging than drama, because I had more notes on those 2-page stories than Kyle had on the entire lead story in every issue. Well, okay.
Hey, those guys they're fun in the show, I mean, from that and then transferring over to comics, it's just It's something that just brings a smile to your face. It's such a fun story.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I am extremely proud of it to this day. And Corin Howell has gone on to be like a megastar in my opinion now. So I was very lucky to get into the ground floor.
Right. So we'll kind of just jump into this. I know that you kind of I was reading up on like your wiki page and stuff like that, and it said that you kind of started going around at conventions and stuff around 2000, starting to look uh, for work when it comes to comics and stuff. So how did that actually get started once you started doing that?
I mean, it didn't. I mean, I think I'm always happy to talk about my path into being a pro because it was not quick. You're right. I started, well, honestly, my first convention when I started trying to get work in comics when I was when I was 12, which is a little bit before 2000. But I really was by 2000. I was in high school, and it was a little easier for me to at least present myself. So, I brought scripts. At the time, and I talked to pros about getting, to get critique and so on and so forth. And I came back in 6 months or a year, depending on the con, with new scripts that worked in all of the critique, and then soon new like 10-page comic stories that I had found people to collaborate with on and things like that. But I did that from 2000 until 2015.
Wow.
I mean, I had sales before then. I was in an Eisner nominated image anthology in 2008. I worked at Vertigo and just like short stories in 2012 and 2014, but it wasn't until 2015 that this like became feasible as my job. So it was not a short tail, and I probably got hundreds, if not thousands, of pitches and books rejected until the one that wasn't right. But I like to say that because it's easier for people to think if they even do like 5, 10, or 15 pitches and something doesn't get accepted, well, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The truth is that, you never know when it's going to happen. And I'm living proof of that. And it could always be the day after you quit. So that's why you can't quit. But I'm also just going to be honest here. Like I certainly wanted to hundreds of times, right? But you got to get back in the horse, and you got to keep working. I am, at least luckily, extremely stubborn. So for me, both in my case, my family saying that this isn't a real job and you should just give up made me want to do the opposite of that. And then my mentor, Steve Siegel, who went on to co-create Ben 10, knew that that's how I would be motivated. So I would call him, this is so hard. It's never going to happen, bitching and moaning. And he would say, well, if it's that hard, you could just quit. And at that point, I'd be like, fuck you, old man. And I was good for like another year.
Yeah.
Right. So I had people on my side that knew how to motivate me, but it happened. Right. And I'm doing, it'll be 10 years of me being full-time freelance this year. So
that's
for
awesome.
Folks who are trying to get in, look, it can happen. You just have to keep at it. But it's important that you listen to crit, there are people, it's immaterial who they are, but I think every pro I know, myself included, knows folks that come to cons every year and they ask for a critique, but then they already have all the answers why our critique is wrong.
Yeah.
And, listen, that's up to them. I'm not here to say that that's the wrong way to be if they believe in what they're putting out there so much. But I would say that I don't think it's the quickest way to improve. So if you are looking for crit, like find people whose work you respect and who you feel like they have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And then actually listen. I was lucky to find those people early on. And it really helped me get where I am today over the course of like 20 years, but it did help, of course.
Right. Well, I mean, and something I've kind of known about you and everything, you're a wrestling fan. So you kind of took on the John Cena mantra of never give up. Did you have that with you whenever you were trying and, those steps failing and everything?
It's funny you say that because I didn't actually get back into wrestling until right after I broke as a pro.
Oh, really? Okay.
So you're not wrong. I do like wrestling.
Yeah.
But I actually I missed Cena. Like I had everything that Cena did, I had to go back and watch because I kind of got out and I might have seen him when he was like prototype, like literally when he said like ruthless aggression, he had like a terrible high and tight.
Yeah.
But I got out. I don't even really remember why. It just kind of wasn't for me.
Right.
And it's actually my friend Mike Kingston who does the comic book Headlocked. We've been friends for years. Still one of my best friends. But for a long, long time, I was I mean, I was basically just that asshole, you know. I would go to lunch with them. Oh, is Undertaker still alive? You know, like, I mean, like, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it wasn't until Sting came to WWE that I got back in, and that's just because like Sting was my guy. Like I was a WCW guy. I also like the Mets and Pepsi, so go figure. But like he was my guy. So when he came over to WWE, I was like, okay, I got to start watching again.
Yeah.
And after that, I mean, probably the same reason I love weird comics minutia. I don't really get half into things.
Okay.
So you know, I had to go back and see everything I missed. So now I'm pretty deep in, but yeah, um I was not an early Cena guy because I just wasn't watching wrestling at the time. Although I'll tell you, I did, if you want a nerdy admission for this podcast, I did varsity swimming. Swimming was my sport in middle school through college.
Oh,
And,
okay.
But my mantra when I was on the block was actually Jenny Sparks's speech before she fucking electrocutes God in the 12th issue of Authority.
Yeah.
So I did have mantras and I did have motivational phrases, but they did not come from the one who can't be seen. They actually came from the spirit of the 20th century.
All right, all right. So that the way that I actually found you was through somebody that I know in wrestling, and that's Jason Ayres from.
Love that guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and so that's I saw like you did a picture with him and stuff, and I was like, that name sounds familiar, and I went and looked it up. I was like, oh, I know who that is. So then I sent you that message about, hey, let's get you on the podcast and everything. And so, man, I'm glad that we've been able to connect and get you on here. This is actually,
No, it's been my
like
pleasure.
I said, I've been very excited about doing this one.
Well, Jason is a good guy. He did he dropped me a line when they were going to be coming and doing a SmackDown relatively close to my house, and it was an interesting experience for me because look, nobody in comics is famous other than like Frank Miller. So I'm not here to I'm not here to suck my own dick in this podcast. But like but I have been noticed in public in my life, like it has happened. And it was weird and surreal to me, but I still I don't like again, my mentor told me like never talk about who you are. Like he always goes into comic stores and not say who he is. I never do that.
Yeah.
I cringe when my fucking father is like, "Do you know my son writes comic books?" I'm like, "We don't do that. I'm 40 years old, man. Like we don't do this shit." But to that point, so I go to SmackDown and I'm just kind of chilling low key. And then of course Jason came up into the crowd to like take the picture you talked about and say hi and all these things.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody there, how do you know that guy? And so then I had to out myself as like a Marvel Comics writer, which is not a problem, but I was amused that it was actually through him that I had to blow up my own spot. It was a nice role reversal, but no, he's a great dude. And yeah, I mean, I love wrestling for the same reason at least I write comics, to be honest. Like, you know, if you go to my Twitter page, you'll see a quote from Jack Kirby, who, if you want to know how much I like Jack Kirby, my fucking wedding rings are custom Jack Kirby wedding rings. So,
oh, that's cool.
But like, I consider comics at its core like a blue collar yeoman like art form, and that's how I feel about wrestling. It's how I feel about drag, and that's one of the reasons I really like them all.
Yeah.
Because there's not, and I'm not going to say that there isn't pretension in comics because I would get struck by lightning, but I will say that there doesn't need to be. Like it was always a very of the people art form, especially in the newsstand days, and that's always what I've liked about it. That's why I like wrestling too.
Right.
You know, obviously, like, you know, tickets to WrestleMania cost your kidney, but you can go like and see your local Fed for like $20 and hang out with like in like an old school like, you know, VFW or something and get the real experience. And that's honestly, that's my shit. I never have to go to WrestleMania in my life. I think you actually get a better seat watching on TV unless you're like mega rich.
Yeah.
But I love going to the indies and I love just like you're right there.
Yeah.
It's people who just love doing it because, you know, they all have other jobs and stuff.
Exactly.
To me, that's the real shit. And it's really exciting.
Yeah. So I'm kind of the same way. The thing was, though, I didn't know anything about indie wrestling, and all my listeners have heard me tell this story multiple times, but just going to relate it to you here. And I knew nothing about it. I'm in Northwest Arkansas area, and my son's stepdad was like, "Hey, do you want to take the boy to a wrestling show? We could all go take him." I was like, "Yeah, that'd be really cool." And we went to the fairgrounds and went to a wrestling show. And I promise the matches that I saw on there were some of the best matches I had seen in a very long time. And I'm somebody who's been watching wrestling, you know, since I was little. And it got me into the independent scene. And now I know of 2 wrestling shows that are about 10-15 minutes away from my house, and I've gotten, there's kind of a community in wrestling, especially in indie wrestling. And so I've been able to meet all of these really cool people because of that one indie show that I went to. But I love going to indie wrestling shows.
Well, and then you also get these moments where you feel like you're like a ground floor fan with people, like without getting into too close about. I mean, I live outside of Boston. In this day and age, I don't always go into where I really live for insanity reasons, but that's just how
I get it. Yeah, yeah.
But like, like there's a variety of feds over here, but like people, like the best example is like Willow Nightingale on AEW. She was always working in the area, right? I mean, I saw her wrestle on the beach in Rhode Island and like fight Alley Cat into the fucking ocean.
Yeah.
Right. And so now when she's on TV, I'm like, that's my girl. It feels like someone you watch in the minor leagues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Finally making the Yankees or something. And like, so there's like that added thing, like you're even more invested. I mean, Willow, I don't think Willow should ever be a face, or pardon me, ever should be a heel. Pardon me, opposite. Yeah. But she could never be a heel for me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Either way. Now I don't.
You're always going to cheer her. Well, yeah, I get that.
I think that in real life, Willow has like the best pure face energy, I think, of anyone in that company. So they would be a fool to make her a heel anyway.
Yeah.
But no, it's like you get to see these people and get to watch them grow and crush it. And I don't know, it's really exciting. And the counterpoint is sometimes you have experiences where like I went to a local show. Now I mentioned everybody, most people, this isn't their only job when you're on the indies.
Yep.
But we're like, I'm at this show a couple years ago and my fiance is with me, then my boyfriend. And like, he's like looking at the dude in the main event. I'm like, fuck, should I be a little insecure here? What's going on? Like, should I feel threatened? Yeah. And no, it was the gym teacher at the school he teaches at. And nobody knew that he had this secret life.
That's cool.
As like the local heel champion. Right. So like, and still only like we and a couple other people know. And it's very amusing, but no, I love it. And look, the storytelling methods are also very similar. It's why you'll see a lot of wrestlers do very well writing comics. I wrote an X-Men issue with Nyla Rose. She did amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
Because the storytelling mechanics are actually very similar. But of course, we don't beat the shit out of each other.
You just draw it out. Other people doing it.
Yes. I'm never putting a hypodermic needle through my cheek like Swerve and Hangman, I'll tell you.
Yeah, no, I'm good there. That match was rough, dude.
I was talking to a friend about it. I'm never going to say that people shouldn't do those things because look, like they're adults, they're professionals. If they want to do it, I feel the same way about the Tiger Driver, by the way. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, Kenny Omega, you should not take a Tiger Driver. But I will say, I never need to see that or want to see it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about the more irrationally dangerous side of things that we're seeing in AEW right now. I would never say, well, they shouldn't be doing that because that's up to them.
Yeah.
But I never need to see someone take a quote unquote safe neck bump, which feels like, an oxymoron.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't like stuff. I was talking to my friend Dark Sheik about it. She's an awesome like comics focused indie wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like I watch wrestling because it's a work.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, like that's part of the magic. So when I see things, when you're just doing shit, to be frank, like it kind of doesn't. It's not what I want to see.
Yeah.
Like that's just like gladiatorial combat or like a. On the positive side, the negative side, you might as well just be watching a fucking snuff film. So like,
right.
I was not in love with that, but I will counterpoint and say that Hangman burning that house down is possibly one of the best go home angles I've ever seen.
Yeah. They really got you to where you, like you said, it was the hook. It hooked you for that match.
No, I was out. Yeah, it was so good. And they built up to the reveal. First you weren't sure it was the same house because they shot it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And then like maybe he was just walking around, right? And then you sort of heard the liquid and you were like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you finally see the gas tank. No, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that Hangman is kind of made for life. Just with that image of him like chilling in the lounge chair drinking whiskey as that house behind me. That's the new "This is fine" meme.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, that's exactly what popped in my head when I saw that. Hey everybody, I've got a really cool event to tell you guys about, and that's the Tulsa Comic Book Swap Halloween. And it's happening on October 27th at the Glenpool Conference Center in Glenpool, Oklahoma, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you do not want to miss it. They've got an incredible lineup of guests, including Justin Nimmo from Power Rangers, Paul E. Niemeyer, the original artist behind Mortal Kombat, Dr. Hassan Rashid from Marvel Studios' Black Panther, Tammy Aaron, who played Pippi Longstocking, and James Hostler, creator of the Bobcat comic book. But that's not all. You'll find everything from comic books, anime, toys, video games, pop culture items, VHS tapes, records, vintage clothing, and art. It's all indoors with free, easy parking. Also, Tulsa Rolling Video Games will be there offering free play on PS5, Xbox, Switch, and much more. Plus, there'll be food trucks, giveaways, a cosplay contest with prizes and trophies, panels, workshops, and even indie short film showcase screenings. And for all of you Star Wars fans out there, the 501st Garrison Legion and Sisterhood of the Traveling Bantha podcast will be there too. This event is growing bigger every year, driven by the amazing father-daughter team behind it. And you've got to be there to be a part of it. The admission is only $5, and kids 12 and under, they get in free. So make sure to mark your calendars for October 27th at the Glenpool Conference Center in Glenpool, Oklahoma. And you can follow them on Instagram at Tulsa Comic Book Swap or Nicholas Gulcher Comics for updates. For more info, check out their website as well, tulsacomicbookswap.square.site. So we're going to kind of jump back over to the comic book side and everything. I could talk wrestling all night. At one point, this show was 80% wrestling. So, but yeah, I had some other questions I wanted to ask you when it comes to comics. Absolutely. You said that you started looking for work and stuff when you were about 12. About how old were you when you realized that this is what you wanted to do?
I kind of can't remember what it wasn't. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it is not untrue. I knew I wanted to work in comics. I didn't necessarily know I wanted to be on the writing side until about the time I started going to cons, because that's, I started going because I knew what I finally wanted to learn how to do. Like I really liked drawing and shit like that when I was younger. But I did, like when I was in college, I wrote illustrated, lettered. The only thing I haven't done. Actually, no, I've done every single job involved with comics. I've done production, I've done lettering, I've done coloring, I've done inking, penciling, I've done it all. This is just what I do professionally, is the writing. But to answer your question, actually, I owe it to Electric Blue Superman. There was an article in the Syracuse New Times around the time that his costume and powers changed. And of course, it was about how the costume was changing forever and the powers are changing forever, and it was never going back. And I was like, fuck, I need to get on board.
Yeah.
But in that article, they sort of broke down how they put the new version of Superman together. And as they did this sort of roundtable discussion, I kind of realized that the writer was who I wanted to be, because that's where the sort of that's the first person holding the baton, that's where the story originates. And then of course you pass to your co-creators who add to it and develop it. So it's not like the story only comes from us, but I wanted to be the guy first holding the baton.
Yeah.
And when I was in college and I wrote and illustrated and produced this 100-page book from one of my theses, it only cemented that. It's not that I didn't enjoy doing like the micro storytelling of a single page, but for me, the speed of ideas was best matched by writing. Like I got about 30 pages into a 100-page book, and mentally I was like ready to move on to the next idea because I knew obviously what happened, so I wrote it as well.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's trial and error as to you figure out what you want to do. But I did, I was inspired by Electric Blue Superman, which I feel like it's kind of all you need to know about me. If you look at my work, it's kind of obvious. But after that, it was just like as I became enamored with the way comics are made in this collaborative style, it just cemented that this is where I could best fit in.
Yeah. So when it comes to like writing these stories, I asked Cullen Bunn this one time, but I want to see what your answer is on this as well.
Cullen is so much more of a professional than me. We're doing Gotcha Man together right now, actually.
Are you okay? Yeah, I met him at a art convention in a little town called Neosho, Missouri, and man, he's a super awesome dude.
He is. Love that man.
Yeah.
And he looks much better bald than I hypothetically would or will in 10 years.
So when it comes to the writing stories, because I mean, you already have established lore in some of these. How much of a leeway do they give you when it comes to creating some of these new stories?
Well, you always have some amount because if they didn't want your spin in a thing, they wouldn't be working with you.
Right.
Same time, I don't think I'm making news to say that the leeway is indirectly related to the fame and overall value of the character.
Gotcha.
And what I mean by that is, what's the most obscure character you can think of? Say I was working on Arm Fall Off Boy, who's a member of the Legion of Superheroes.
Okay.
I shouldn't say nobody gives a shit, because what I've learned after 10 years is everybody gives a shit about someone.
Right.
But fewer people on average have strong opinions about Arm Fall Off Boy.
Right.
And of course, there's not a heavy marketing machine behind Arm Fall Off Boy. There's not Arm Fall Off Boy lunchboxes, which nobody uses lunchboxes anymore, but people love to say that. There's not Arm Fall Off by merch, boy merch. I would assume if there were, it should maybe be Velcro. But so the point is, like, you can do more. You can pretty much within reason do anything you want with that character, as long as it doesn't break the core of who the character is, because every character has that, no matter how obscure they may be.
Yeah.
Conversely, I was on Wonder Woman on and off for 3 years. And that's a multi-billion-dollar character between the movies and of course the merchandise and things like that. So it's not that you can't do things and break new ground and add to the lore, but yes, there are absolutely more quote unquote rules. There's more approvals and things like that. And at the same time, like, you still have to fight for what you think is important and what matters to the story and what's going to be great. I don't think that's an issue. There are some people who will complain about that. To me, that's the rules of the game when you want to work in a character that's been around for 80 plus years, and that is at the top of a media empire. That's not to say that I wish people wouldn't relax a little bit with certain things, but yes, there's absolutely, like, the more well-known a character is, I shouldn't say that you can do less, but there are more hurdles to jump. And if you're willing to jump them, sure. I mean, you can still do some wild shit, and that's when we all win.
So I know I've only got you for a little bit of time here, so I've just got a couple more questions I want to ask you before I get you.
We can push till 10 of.
10 of? Okay. All right, cool. What would you say is your proudest story that you've written? I know that's a hard one because, I mean, most of them, they say the one that they're writing right now, but, is there one that sticks out to you?
Yeah, but honestly, in my opinion, that's kind of a line. Like, what's not a line is that I don't put my name in anything I'm not proud of.
Right.
But much like picking between your children, everybody secretly does have some they like more than others. So for me, I mean, it's easy. My favorite thing I've ever done, and the thing that I'm most proud of in my time in Cape's work is Martian Manhunter, a book I did at DC with Riley Rossmo, who's one of my favorite people I've ever worked with and to work with. So that has to be one of my answers. It's pure science fiction. It's my favorite. I mean, it was me working with one of my favorite collaborators in my favorite editorial team on my favorite DC Comics character. So, and we got to tell within reason the exact story we wanted to tell. So I have to mention Martian Manhunter. And then beyond that, it's probably Kill a Man, a book I wrote with Philip Kennedy Johnson and Alec Morgan at Aftershock a couple years ago. Like, I do a lot of stories of queer characters, but my interests are not necessarily in the exact same silo as many of my fellow queer creators, which is not, I'm not denigrating them. We're just different people.
Right.
And so for me, like, Kill a Man is the type of LGBTQ plus book that I wanted as a kid. It's and one of the reasons is that there's extra drama from the lead character being a queer man, but it is an intense story one way or another. Like, it's essentially Creed. If instead of training with Rocky, Donnie had to train with Ivan Drago instead.
Okay.
So it opens in the 90s. It's based off of Emil Griffith, who was a bisexual boxer in the 60s, actually. His opponent called him a slur in the ring. He lost his temper, as you might imagine, and he ended up killing the guy.
Oh,
And of course, like, he's sometimes lionized in the community, but he himself would have said when he was alive and he wrote a book about it, like, it's not that simple.
yeah.
Like, it's never as simple as people think. So it got me thinking about that, and I wanted to do something with that story. I also love Rocky and Creed. Like, Creed is my favorite movie probably that's been made.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, how can I make this about things that are pertinent to me?
Yeah.
So we took that Emil Griffith story and updated it to mixed martial arts. So it opens in the 90s, and similar to the Emil Griffith story, two mixed martial artists, one calls the other a slur in the ring, and the Emil Griffith character kills him. And in the stands that day is the deceased fighter's son. So we flash forward 20 or 25 years later, and now the son is like the Conor McGregor of the day. He's hot shit. He's up for a title fight.
Yeah.
And on the eve of the fight, he gets outed by the guy he's about to fight, and he loses everything. His camp deserts him. His family deserts him because, to them, he's one of the people that killed their father and all these things.
Right.
And the only person he can turn to train and sort of get his life back is this guy that he witnessed kill his father decades in the past. And that's where the story starts. So I'm extremely proud of it. It's to this day, I'm amazed that it came out as bold as it did.
Yeah.
So that has to be my proudest work because it's what I'm talking about all the time.
And I love how much, even just kind of giving me this brief idea of the story and everything, I love how much detail there is into it. And I can see, just with you talking about it, you have a lot of rich story behind this whole thing. And so I appreciate that whenever it comes out, whenever I'm talking to a writer or something, because sometimes you don't always get a good enough idea. But I feel like hearing you talk about it just now, I could kind of picture it in my head. And I'm gonna have to go and look that one up. I have not read that one actually.
Well, I'm not the huggings and holding hands and talking about your feelings writer. Like, there are many of those.
Yeah.
A book about punching your problems in the face, very much more high speed. But actually, I'll bring it around, man. If you're looking it up and you can find it, the variant for Kill a Man actually featured the first ever comic book work by Rob Schamberger, who at the time was WWE's artist in residence.
Oh, cool.
He was a friend, so I reached out to him and we booked him, and he did his first ever comic book cover. So I was very excited about that as well.
That's really cool. That's something I like about comics too, is the variant covers and things. I actually work with a comic book company out of Central Arkansas. I do all their social media and stuff for them. And they're just a little independent.
Not that indie pub that Cullen works for, or is it?
No. This one's called Original Geek that I work for.
Right on. I was going to say, because he's working for like a boutique. He's helping out with a boutique horror publisher that's in the area as well.
Yeah.
I say in the area, like, man, I'm from New England. You got to apologize. Like it's in the Midwest, but I do sound kind of like an asshole saying in the area.
Well, it's actually not that far from me. Let's see. You could do a day trip, how far he is from me. So, you're in the ballpark, we're all in that kind of same area. But no, Central Arkansas is where the comic book company that I work for. I'm the only one that's in Northwest Arkansas. All the artists and writers and all that, they are in Central Arkansas. But seeing the variant covers and seeing, like, we've got another book that's coming out here soon. And so I've got to see all these different variant covers and their idea of how it would look, and I love the collaboration when it comes to that. Because, you have your main artist for the book, but then you have these other artists to come up with their idea of what the character looks like as well. And I just love that when there's, that collaboration there.
No, absolutely. It's like one of the great things about comics is that like I said, the story starts with us, but then by the time it comes around, whether it's in the art the cover art you're talking about, or of course even this page to page, like, your own story can end up surprising you, and that's pretty unique to not only comics, but to any type of art where it is a true collaboration. So the same is true about film, or TV or things like that. But I do think it's pretty special.
Yeah. How often does it come across where you write a story, you send it off to an artist, and it's something, they come up with something that's not exactly what you were looking for, but they actually surprise you with what they're coming up with?
Oh, I mean, nearly every time, but
Yeah.
but that's how it's supposed to be. You know,
Right.
that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Uh,
No.
you know, like, and for me, philosophically, as a creator, not only is it not a problem, that's how it should be, because I am not quote unquote in charge of the penciler, inker, letterer, colorist, editorial
Right.
collaborators. We exist, you know, we're a team.
Right.
And there is no captain. If there is a captain, it's editorial, but it's not me.
Yeah.
So, um, honestly, like, I'm worried if it doesn't happen, to answer your question. That's something.
So you said that you've been doing this for about 10 years now.
Mhm.
What was some of the best advice that you've gotten when you first started out?
Well, you know, honestly, when I did meet Siegel when I was 12 years old, he told me, perhaps too brusquely for someone that age, but here we are, that if I wanted this to be my job, I had to treat it like a job and write every single day, no matter what. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a job.
Yeah.
And I still try to do that. I mean, by virtue of it being my job now, I almost always do that.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, it is true. You know, a lot of times we tend to romanticize creative work. You know, oh, I have to, like, you know, like, if I chant long enough and I light some candles, you know, maybe, you know, and that's not to say that there is not obviously a creativity and a passion and a headiness, especially to when you're brainstorming a book, but it demystified for me the actual mechanical process of getting the ideas onto the page.
Right.
And I think, you know, it sounds obvious, but it's also been extremely, extremely valuable in the intervening 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything coming up that maybe you want to talk about before I get you off of here?
I mean, there's a lot. I have, you know, I'm still on Scarlet Witch at Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
I just did. I mean, they're around if we're talking about wrestling. I wrote the AEW comics that came out at San Diego that were being handed out, so they're probably like aftermarket now, but I'm
Oh,
extremely
cool.
proud of those.
Yeah.
Uh, in the fall. I have a next week. I think I have my Avengers series. Avengers Assemble is launching, which has a great roster of classic Avengers. They're going back to Avengers Mansion, which hasn't been in use for a long time, just because the Avengers are in a giant living city, as they tend to be. So that's coming out. We have Ewoks. My first long form Star Wars thing is coming out very soon as well. Um, and what else is going on? And of course, I mentioned with Cullen, I'm doing where Cullen, myself, and Tommy Lee Edwards are working on Gotcha Man.
Okay.
Cullen's writing the main book. Tommy Lee and I are doing all of the ancillary miniseries and one shots and things like that. I'm doing the Galactor miniseries first, so it's the villain book. And I'm very, very excited about that. And there's a ton more too. You're going to see me on Marvel Unlimited with a Venom story. You're going to see me there with some other content in the spring. I am all over the place, but that's a good way to be. Keeps me excited.
Yeah. Busy guy, man. That's awesome. So if people want to follow you online so they can keep up with everything that's going on with you, how can they do that?
I'm very easy to find on Twitter and Instagram. Both are the Steve Orlando, and those are my public facing things. So feel free to connect with me there. And I'm easy to talk to, provided of course there's not any unhinged threats on my life or things like that.
Right. Right.
But hey, you know what? There's such a wide gulf, and it's so easy not to do that. So I encourage folks to say hello.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts before I get you off of here?
No, man. Like other than I'm happy to be on. I'm happy to talk. I'm glad that through Jason we met. And I always like, you know, speaking to folks in new places. You are the first Arkansas podcast I've done, which is exciting to me.
Oh, cool.
I've never been there, which is unusual. I've been to Missouri,
Mhm.
but I have never been to Arkansas. It must mean that a con hasn't invited me yet, but hopefully that changes.
Hey, we have one right here too.
Well, it's a good way to explore.
Yeah.
You know, and when I come, I can ask, I can set aside 1 to 3 hours, as I sometimes do in the South or in the Midwest, and ask you your thoughts on barbecue.
Okay. All
And
right.
I assume we need a minimum of that much time.
All right, man. Well, hey, we're going to get off of here for now. I'm going to talk to you for a minute or two before I let you go. But it's been awesome talking to you. I really appreciate you coming on the show. And maybe we can get you back on because we got a bunch more stuff that we can cover.
You can. You know where to find me. I will tell you. As long as we schedule with reasonable time, I'm easy to get on, and I'd happily come back.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.
Hello there. While I have your attention, let me introduce myself. My name is Colby Cheese. I'm a content creator at TikTok with over 1.6 million followers, husband, comic book collector, and avid wrestling fan. And if you're listening to this, that means you must be a wrestling fan too. We will be discussing all of the wrestling from Monday Night Raw to Friday Night SmackDown, those AEW Wednesdays to those PLEs on the weekends that we have to wake up at 11 a.m. for. And that's only at Wrestling with Colby Cheese.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Dawn.
And if you've ever watched a TV show and thought to yourself, oh my god, that season finale plot twist was absolutely bonkers.
Or seen a movie and thought, wow, I need to talk to somebody about this train wreck immediately.
Then we think you'll fit right in with our podcast, I Hate It, Let's Watch It. We watch TV shows like Riverdale and Emily in Paris.
And movies like Deep Water, Killer Sofa, Rubber, and Deadly Illusions. And we give them the total rinsing they deserve.
It's basically group therapy for movie masochists. So come check us out wherever you stream podcasts.
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Steve Orlando. I know that I enjoyed talking to him, and I can't wait to get him back on the show because he was just an amazing guest to have on. And we have a lot more that I would like to talk to him about. So be looking for him to come back on the show here very soon. So next week's episode, I will be announcing on my social medias for you to see. So make sure that you stay tuned to all of my socials. That way you can find out who the next guest will be on If You Give a Dad a Podcast. But while you're waiting, make sure that you check out my podcast networks that I'm a part of, the OIW Podcast Network and the Zio to Hero Podcast Network. You can find both of those in my show notes. They're amazing, amazing podcasts that you can find on there. Lots of different stuff. So no matter what you're looking for, you're bound to find something good on one of those two podcast networks. So make sure that you go and check them out. Also, make sure that you go out there and get you some merch. I have t-shirts out. I have hoodies out. I will be having more stuff come out on there as well. I have a link to my shop in the show notes. It is also on my link tree. So make sure that you go out there and get some of the merch that we can sport it around. So at the end of every episode, I have a song that plays at the end. And that is by a man named D-Cure. He is an amazing dude that I had on in one of my first episodes that I did in my first year. It's somewhere in the first 15 episodes, I believe, that he was on. You should go back and listen to that one. It's a really good interview. We had a lot of fun talking, and you get to know him a little better. But if you like the way his music sounds, make sure that you go out there and follow him. He's all the time creating new stuff, and he makes really funny videos on TikTok. So, yeah, just go and look him up. So as you're listening to this, this is actually the week that SpaCon is going to happen. So if you'd like to go out and see Original Geek, this weekend that's coming up is the one that you're going to want to go and get your tickets to SpaCon. They will be there all weekend. So it's going to be a great event. They're going to have all the different comics there. They're going to have different artists from Original Geek there. And yeah, they're going to have a great time. So make sure that you go out there to that event. The next one that I will be at McAllister, Oklahoma at HallowsCon. And I'll be setting up there. I am the official media for that convention. And I'll be bringing Nick along with me to sell some of those Original Geek comics. But make sure you come by my booth, say hi to me, maybe tell me a dad joke. I enjoy doing that stuff. I'll be doing some different videos throughout the day and talking to different people. So make sure that you come by and say hi while you are there. I've got some other things that are going to be coming up here soon, so I will be announcing those as well. So make sure that you stay tuned to this podcast and to my socials. That way you can see all the cool things that we will be doing next. Also, check out my brother podcast. That would be If You Give a Dad a YouTube channel and If You Give a Dad a Cosplay. If you've ever thought about creating your own YouTube channel, or if you've ever thought about getting into cosplay, I recommend these two channels to go to help you to start that. They give good advice when it comes to different things, when it comes to cosplay, or when you're wanting to edit a YouTube video, or if you're looking to find kind of a more affordable way to do a YouTube channel and make it look professional. Go and check those out, those two networks. I will have them in my show notes. But they have all kinds of cool stuff, so just make sure that you go to them as well. So you hear me talking about social media earlier, and you're probably like, well, how do I follow you on social media? I made it fairly simple. All you got to do is go to my Linktree, and I have all of the icons on there. And my Linktree can be found in the show notes. It's the very last link that you find in my show notes on every episode. So if you want to follow me, make sure that you do it there. You can also send me an email. I have my email address tagged in there, but I can tell it to you right now too. It's giveadatapodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. You know, if you have a joke for me, if you'd like me to bring somebody on, tell me. Send me an email. Let me know. I'm all the time looking for new people to have on the show. I'm always the time looking for new jokes to tell on the show. So if you want to just tell me, hey, I like your show, or if you want to say, hey, your show sucks, send me a line. I'd be more than happy to read it and respond to you. Also, while you're listening to this, make sure that you do me a big favor and rate and review this podcast. The more people that do that, the more likely I am to be recommended to more people. So, yeah, I would love to see this show grow, and if you could do that, that would be awesome. I would love that. Also, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you are notified when a new episode of this show drops. So, we've come to the end of another episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast, and it is time for Billy's favorite part of the show, and that is Dad Joke of the Week. Who can save the world in 60 minutes? An Hour Ranger.
Jared's Dad Joke of the Week? More like Jared's Lame Duck of the Week. Oh my God, this is so bad to listen to.
All right. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Room rounded, but I got a podcast on. He calls us beautiful people, then tells us who we have on. The best part of my day, the world blocked out in my pods. Tell my friends all about it so that they follow along. And the host is kinda nerdy, but guess what, I am as well. I don't feel so alone, and I began walking out of my shell. Heard a story, I need a connection I haven't felt. I'll be looking for the next one, till then farewell. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. Listen closely, download and tune in remotely. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. And listen closely, download and tune in remotely.
This podcast is part of the OIW Podcasting Network.
Alright, cool, sweet. Baby Jesus. Okay, cool.